Today we are going to talk about a topic that I know many of you have been waiting for, and that is my near death experience and what actually happened while I was dead. So, just to get you caught up, I coded 8 different times, um, had a heart attack, had a stroke, spent 2 weeks in a coma. That's the quick version of what happened. Now, also, I want to preface this video by saying usually I script them. The last couple I've scripted at least, but this one I felt like it's better off not scripted because I kind of wanted to be off the cuff. I tried to write something and it just felt too sterilized, if that makes sense. So I decided to kind of just ad lib this one. So forgive me if I'm bouncing around everywhere from topic to topic. Now, if you want to know what exactly happened to me, how I ended up in this position, go to my last video. I go into detail about how I made it to the hospital, barely. I don't know how I made it to the hospital. And the amazing guardian angels that saved my life, and the doctors and the nurses and all that. So go watch that before you watch this if you want to get caught up. So let's get started talking about my near-death experiences. And before we get started, I want to openly say that before all this, I did not believe in God. I didn't believe in religion. I just kind of thought that there was nothing out there in terms of like a divine being. And I'm still not totally sold on that even after all this, but I am sold on there might be something, and I'm open to hearing and learning more about it. So my experience can be broken up into two very different parts, right? So the first part we're going to talk about here is me walking through an empty field. Now, when I say an empty field, it was like an empty, farmers type field that had like soybeans or wheat, or maybe it was tall weeds or whatever, up to my knees. So it wasn't like big stacks of whatever. I don't know the farmer term, but it was up to my knees, whatever it was, and it felt very comfortable. And I was walking there. And if you watch my last video, you'll know that's a big deal because I lost my leg last year, and then this year I've lost it further. um, if that makes sense. I had it amputated, and then I was amputated again higher up. Anyway, so I was walking, and I didn't have a prosthetic on. I remember that too. So I was walking through this field, and it felt comfortable, and it felt warm, and it felt peaceful. And I feel like at that moment I could have decided to pass on, or I could have decided to stay here. And I think I decided to stay here. Obviously, I decided to stay here, but I think I decided to stay here because my son. I really believe that Alex, my 6-year-old, pulled me through all of this. A lot of people have asked me about this experience and asking if I saw animals, if I saw Jesus, if I saw people, if I saw family members. My dad passed away years ago, so I definitely would have seen him if there were people to see in the afterlife. But I didn't see any people. But even though I didn't see any people, it did not feel alone. It felt like warm and it felt peaceful, like I said, and it felt like I was safe. It didn't feel like I needed to interact with anybody. I just felt okay. I'm walking here. It's a perfect, beautiful day, and it felt safe, not lonely at all, even though nobody was there. Now, the next part, I think a lot of people are interested in hearing too, because it almost feels like I slipped into either a different life, my own life in a previous lifetime, or like a multiverse kind of thing. So let me explain. So with this, I very clearly remember living a different life. I remember I was married to a different woman. I had different kids. I had 2 kids. In real life here, I have 1 kid. I remember having 2 kids. I remember being happy there. I remember not feeling like I needed. I felt like I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. But something did feel off. It didn't feel bad. In this life, I very clearly remember working at a grocery store as like a butcher, like a meat butcher. Like you would have the cuts the steak and um, all that jazz. And I don't know if it was a chain. Did I just say all that jazz? All that stuff. Anyways, sorry about that. Anyway, I remember being a butcher and enjoying my job, enjoying my life, doing that. And I also need to add, I know nothing about being a butcher um, in this life. I don't know how to cut meat. All I know is how to eat steak and how to enjoy the after product of the cutting. So I have no interest in doing that, and I also have no skills in doing that. I'm a writer. As part of this whole deal, I also remember going home to my family, and my family was it was like I said, it was a different family, but it was happy. I was comfortable there. It didn't feel like I should be with somebody else. It did feel like something was a little off, but it didn't feel like I was in the wrong place, if that makes sense. But I very clearly remember having dinner with this family, sitting down at the table and eating dinner, which is not something that we do much, or my family now does much of. We usually watch TV while we eat. My 6-year-old will just take his chicken nuggets to his bedroom and eat. You know, and we don't do the sitting around at the table very much. So I don't think what I was seeing was like a different version of that. I once again want to apologize if I'm rambling here because I'm going, like I said, I'm going off script. I'm not doing any reading here, so I'm just kind of going based on memory. So I apologize if I feel like I'm everywhere. It's because I probably am. Now, I don't want to embellish this story at all. I don't want to fill in gaps where there might be gaps where it comes to like kind of making stuff up that I feel like I might have noticed or seen because I want to stick to the facts here. Um, and I've had people ask me, was it modern or was it you know a long time ago? And to that I say I don't know exactly. It was I know there were cars, so it could have been the 1950s. It could have been 2022. It could have been who knows, the 1990s. All I know is there were cars. I remember driving a car or being in a car. Um, and my guess, and I just said I wouldn't guess, but my guess is I was driving home from work or driving to work or something like that. I've had a lot of people suggest that maybe it was a past life, or maybe it was an alternate, like thinking of the Marvel movies, that multiverse kind of thing, sliding into a different timeline. I don't know the answer. I don't know for sure if either one of those or what actually happened, but I do know what I felt very real, and it was and, it felt real. And just to explain to you how real this other life felt to me, though, when I woke up from a coma, my wife Amy was the first person that I saw. She was right there next to me, holding my hand, and I remember the first thing I asked her was Alex. I said Alex, which is my son's name, and I didn't know if he was real or not. I didn't know if what I was experiencing while I was out was my real life, or what if this life that I'm living now is my real life. So I spent the first 5 minutes after I came out of that coma wondering what's real. Am I in a fake world right now and my other life is real, or is this the real life and then the other one is fake? I just didn't know. And 5 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're in that position, confused already from coming out of a coma, trying to figure out what's real life and what's not, it's a long time. Now, as I've said before, I'm not afraid to answer questions from anybody. I actually encourage you to ask questions, and I will answer every question that I get. I will do my best to, as long as it's appropriate. I will answer it. With that said, I do have some questions from my last video from one person. She asked, or he or she asked, a bunch of different questions, and I want to answer them all. So they asked, the first question is, what was the last thing that I remember from my old life? And that's definitely eating dinner with the family. That's the last thing I remember. I don't know if there's anything beyond that. but that is the last thing that I clearly remember. My next question on that same post is, do you remember the moment when you were taken back to reality? I don't remember that either. It didn't feel like I was yanked back. It didn't feel. I mean, it felt like, just a snap of a finger. One minute I was there, the next minute I wasn't. It didn't feel like a yanked back feeling, though. Now, another question: did I have the free will to make my own choices while I was out? I don't know, but I would say it didn't feel like I was being made to do stuff. So, like, you know how you go to work, you come home, you might spend time with your family, you might play video games, whatever you decide to do. It was like that. It was like, I went to work because I had to go to work, came home because I wanted to spend time with my family. So it felt like I had the choice to do that, but that's kind of like what I would have already been doing anyway, if that makes sense. And then the last question, are my memories hit or miss? Um, and yes, absolutely, they're hit or miss. I clearly remember the two things happening. Do I remember anything beyond that? Foggy, very foggy. I don't know for sure, and I don't want to sit here and embellish things that I may not remember. I may be remembering incorrectly. I don't want to try to fill in the blanks that I don't know what would be the facts. I've had people ask me too if I would be open to going to like a psychic or like a medium or whatever, and I would definitely be open to that. I've never really thought about it before, but I would, it wouldn't hurt anything for sure. And worst case, I learned nothing. Best case, maybe I remember something from all this, and I would love to remember something from all this, like something more. I think it's interesting to think about, and it's interesting to talk about. And if I could learn more information about it, I would definitely love to. Now, with all of that said, I do want to answer any questions you have. Like I said, you send me your questions and we will get them answered. I will get them answered, not we. This is me here. I will get them answered. I will do another video just answering questions if I get a bunch of them. But I think, just to kind of tease ahead to my next video, I want to talk about the recovery. I want to talk about, what was going on in my head after I actually woke up. Which there was a little bit of trippiness going on too, with still feeling like I was in a dream, or feeling like things just felt a little bit off in my actual reality. And I'm not gonna lie, it still feels like that sometimes. But we'll talk about that in the next video, and we'll talk about my recovery. So if you would like to see that, if that sounds interesting to you, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and then ask your questions. I'm answering everything you have.